Here we go. This is it. We're finally here. 1 month. We're on episodes 9 and 10. The final breakdown. The final jab step. The final jump shot. The finale. This is it, ladies and gentlemen. The Last Dance. Live breakdown. Now, these last two episodes were good. They weren't better than 7 and 9. 7 and 8 were, to me, the best episodes of the series. But obviously, let's start from the beginning of episode 7, where it starts the Indiana Pacers series. A lot of people were hitting me up as soon as it got to the one part, and I knew it was going to happen when they went to the flu game with the Indiana Pacers. The Utah, when they went back the year prior in the middle of the Indiana Pacers series, they kind of led you to believe this feud happened back when Jordan in the Indiana series with Reggie Miller, when they had the fight. You would think that took place during that series or that season. So the director did a good job of misdirection at that point. What's up, everybody? I saw you, Gabe. Now, a lot of people weren't born during this time. So a lot of people are watching this for the first time. Now, thank you. Because now everybody, I made that video 4 years ago, and I've known it since the day it happened, that Michael Jordan was food poisoned and he did not have the flu. I made that video 4 years ago. Everyone's been sending me messages, and just right now, they just sent me some more messages talking about, you were right. See, no, you were right again. I'm like, I told you, he was poisoned. The NBA covered it up. That's what they do. They didn't want the public to be, or concerned, or someone to try to repeat what they did in Utah. They did an internal investigation to find out who the people were, and they basically gave them a slap on the wrist because they were some kids in Utah, but they don't want that to spread that Michael Jordan was poisoned. Some kid might try to do that down the road to some other player. They don't want that to get out, so it's more plausible that Michael Jordan just ate something and didn't agree with him, and he had a stomach flu, or he just caught a flu virus, and just say, oh, he battled the flu-like symptoms. So the NBA covered it up, even though the truth was leaking out during the game. The people were telling the truth until the NBA got there and said, no, this is what happened. And then they put out their press release. So different stories, different takes, different looks on how everything was playing out. Me, I was not a Bulls fan. Even watching some of this series made me cringe. The way they still disrespect Isiah Thomas and the Detroit Pistons when we made them. I'm like, we made this team. One of their key pieces to winning championships is a Detroit Piston. How dare them show disrespect? But one thing on the other side of it is it showed Michael Jordan is so much like the Detroit Pistons and with his will to win. And it showed the division of the 90s basketball as compared to today. And what you had to do, you had to persevere, you had to elevate, you had to win the game at any cost and dig deep. And you played every game. Preseason didn't matter. Guys were exhausted. You had to play 44 minutes. It's what you did. Now, the Indiana series, the only thing I regret that they didn't show was they skipped through games 5 and 6. To me, that's terrible, terrible editing job. How can you skip games 5 and 6 of the Indiana Pacers series? Game 5, actually, they don't even cover the controversy of Jalen Rose not playing in game 5. That was similar to Draymond Green. Jalen Rose was giving them fits. They couldn't guard Jalen Rose. Jalen Rose would come off the bench and he could get to the next level. Kerr couldn't guard him. Ron Harper had problems guarding him because he had a crossover and he was a left-hand shooter. He was a southpaw jump shooter. And he knew how to pass, and he can create space, and he can hit open shots. The Indiana Pacers lost because Larry Bird decided, instead of letting me play Aaron McKee out here in the game, he had to have white guys on the court at all times. And he played a guy who was very ineffective and at the end of his years and was a great player. But Chris Mullin had no business being on that court. And it cost him. It cost him going to the next level. Mullin was done. He was completely done. And in that series, it cost him. They could have won. The Duncan Dutchman was perfect that year. That was the year they could have won the NBA championship. Yep, Derek McKee should have been out there, but Larry Bird wanted to go with Dream Team Chris Mullin, and he, knowing Mullin was shot, he just still wanted to have Mullin couldn't hit a shot. And this is a guy who never would basically miss 3 shots in a row. He couldn't buy a shot anymore. He was done. And they still went with him down the stretch. Don't forget to hit the like button, folks. I mean, there's no more comparison of Jordan and LeBron. I mean, it's over now. The lie has been exposed in 10 episodes. You can't watch this and then go back to talking about LeBron James. It just sounds like an oxymoron. It's done. My favorite part of the documentary, it's kind of hard. I'll have to go back to the early ones because it's a lot of things Mike said that I agreed with, and it's hilarious. And one of the main things I saw in this saga that was totally funny, especially in these newer ones, is when he said, "I ain't Shaq." But hey, I ain't Shaq. But they just swept Shaq, and they did that big guy there. I ain't Shaq. I ain't Shaq. That's all I got to tell you there. And this is why Shaq is not in my top list of no NBA basketball players. Because the same reason, Mike ain't Shaq. And anybody who thinks Shaq got a shot, look, I ain't Shaq. I ain't Shaq. But I ain't Shaq. You better go check, ask somebody else. Because I'll tell you right now, I ain't Shaq. And he's not Shaq. Oh, it ain't a lot of hate. It's just a lot of truth. He know what Shaq was. Shaq's a party guy. He ain't no dig down deep. We need this game kind of guy. You can sweep Shaq. It's been done before. Shaq pouts, can't get his way. Foles. Dennis Rodman held Shaq down. They wasn't worried about Shaq. They were like, we can handle Shaq. No, I'm not Shaq. Michael Jordan could only score. That's the most retardedest thing I've ever seen in my life. And one play, this man goes down, gets a steal. He had more offensive rebounds than Dennis Rodman in that last game. They didn't even cover that. He played 44 minutes and was battling on the glass because Scottie Pippen back was messed up. So Mike didn't play all the way back. He had to play up there and get rebounds. So he would attack the glass. He had more offensive rebounds than Dennis Rodman in his last game as a Chicago Bull. Now, I couldn't stand Jordan. Couldn't stand him. But I knew Utah couldn't beat him. They had the better team. And that's the thing. That one stat that they showed that separates Jordan from LeBron instantly. They've beaten 7 teams that had 60 wins or more. LeBron was beating teams with losing records in the playoffs. So your wins are counterfeit. You're not beating all these 60-win teams. I mean, he was in the East playing teams in the first round with losing records. Losing records, and they're in the playoffs. Michael Jordan had a gene in him that wouldn't allow him to lose. That's just it. He wouldn't lose. To beat that guy, it took a lot. It took everything you got to every last second. You had to strategize. That's what made Detroit so great. Watching this just shows you how great the Detroit Pistons were. This whole documentary shows you how great the Detroit Pistons was. Because you see how hard it is to beat Michael Jordan? They did it consistently. So if that same team can dominate Michael Jordan and the Chicago Bulls consistently, and then after that, no one else could beat them. Do you realize that? The only team to beat Michael Jordan when he was Michael Jordan and playing a full season was the Detroit Pistons in 1990. The Orlando Magic beat them when he came back for 17 games. He was not physically in basketball shape. They knew it. They took advantage of it. And the last time Michael Jordan ever lost in a series was to the bad boy Pistons. And they almost swept the entire 1990s. LeBron has never, ever, and can never have that type of dominance. So his 9 straight fraudulent trips to the NBA Finals means nothing. It's paper thin. Because you had better teams than Michael Jordan. You had super teams. Even Dwayne Wade said, we underachieved in Miami. Y'all went to 4 straight NBA Finals in Miami with Dwayne Wade, Chris Bosh, and you had a host of other all-stars on your team and great role players on your team. From Mike Miller, you had them all. And you couldn't beat a team that was the oldest team in the NBA. Dirk Nowitzki was in his older years, he only had a couple more years left. He ended up playing until 20 more years, but of effectiveness. Terry was old. Jason Kidd was old. This was the geriatric Dallas Mavericks making one last gas. Y'all had no business losing to them. And you scored 8 points in the NBA Finals. Michael Jordan had the stomach flu. The stomach flu. Jordan had the stomach flu from food poisoning. Let that sink in. Food poisoning. He was turning colors. He had to take IV. He's throwing up. He can't hold any food down. And he played 44 minutes and scored 41 points. You were perfectly healthy and scored 8 in an NBA Finals game. Michael Jordan didn't play for stats. He played to win. The stats just happened to come in the process. The difference from LeBron, he plays for stats. And if they win or lose, we don't know. It might come, it might not come. And the majority of the time, it don't come. He lose. So you can never catch Michael Jordan in nothing. You can't even come close. Your legacy is already screwed up. You could win 12 NBA championships right now. You could never pass Mike. They're like, well, Mike won 6. Look how many times you had to go. But I just won 12. You got to give me some credit. Nah, it's over, bro. It's over. I mean, anybody could build a super team up now. Jordan was in his late 30s when he started getting Dennis Rodman. Pippen had already been there. Pippen was done at that time. And you starting to see now, Scotty was done. Scotty lost the Indiana Pacer game because he missed the free throw. Oh, it's so much. You could make a whole video about LeBron. Not like Mike. He will never be like Mike. Never be like Mike. He can't post like Mike. Can't do a pull-up jumper like Mike. Got no moves like Mike. He ain't got nothing like Mike. He got no left hand like Mike. Got no right hand like Mike. He can't dunk on a crowd like Mike. Now, if it's a point guard him, yeah, he can jump up and tomahawk. Mike coming in on 4 dudes. Well, we already know. We ain't going to mention defense. He left that back in 2004. Like, oh, man, defense. Yeah, I left that back in 2004. Oh, man, you got to be kidding. So it's all over now. There is no comparison. There is no more, well, let's wait and see. He might be like him one day. He could get no. This woke up all the people that was in the cloud. We've been out the cloud already. Now people catching up. People telling me you was right, Sino. I'm like, thank you. I'm only right. It ain't like I'm a genius. I'm only right because I lived it. We actually knew what was going on. So I'm glad this documentary was made to show the people that I was right all along. And that's why LeBron is doing Space Jam 2. Because he got to ride Michael Jordan's legacy. You want to wear 23. You want to make Space Jam 2. Why don't you make LeBron James 1? We got Michael Jordan. Who is LeBron James? Can you be you? You wearing the sleeves like Allen Iverson and Kobe. You want to do that and want to wear Kobe locker. You just a fanboy. That's it. You just a fan. Be you. Who is LeBron? That's why Mike didn't choose you. Mike didn't choose you, and it burns him up. Mike chose Carmelo Anthony over him to represent Jordan Brand. You mad he chose Zion. Zion chose to go with Jordan Brand instead of signing with Clutch. You was real mad about that. Mike went over there to see him, and he signed with Mike. Oh, that burnt you up. Oh, that burnt you up. That burnt you up. Then you thought you was going to come out there and dominate the kid. The kid outplayed you in 2 games. He was on a minute restriction and outplayed you in 2 games. And you thought you was dominating. They ain't going to talk about that. Phil Jackson broke up the Bulls. I made the video and I told you that. They went back to get Phil to come back, and if Phil would have came back, Reinsdorf was going to go to Jordan. I made that video too, and I made that before this documentary dropped. Phil Jackson is the one that broke up the Bulls. He broke it up because Phil didn't want to coach no more. Phil wanted a break. Mike would have talked him back into it, and he knew it. So he was glad it was said it. He wanted a break. He was tired. Phil went through a nasty divorce because he was cheating with Jenny Buss, and him and his wife was going through a divorce. It was nasty. So Phil was going through a divorce because he running around with this doggone chick. Phil dressing better. He messing around with Jenny Buss. And he got to get a divorce, and he's got problems at home. So Phil wanted a break, so he can go spend time with Jenny. He ain't want to be on the road no more, and Mike want to go again, and Mike want to still play. It was a 50-game season. They could have got it done. They could have went back to the finals. Because the next year, the team that went to the finals was the New York Knicks. The New York Knicks went to the finals against the San Antonio Spurs. They would have lost to the Spurs. The Bulls' run would have come to an end in 99. The Bulls would have lost to the San Antonio Spurs. Because Pippen was done. If Pip would have did a 1-year deal, that's what Mike's like. Everybody would have came back for a 1-year deal. Kerr would have came back for a 1-year deal. All these guys would have came for 1-year deals. They had nobody to guard Tim Duncan. Tim Duncan was the X factor. That's why they would have lost. That was the one position the Bulls were getting by on. You got David Robinson, who could score, but Tim Duncan can facilitate and score at his size. People underestimate Tim Duncan's abilities. Not only could he shoot and score from any position on the court, especially in the paint, what Tim Duncan could also do was pass. He was very good passing big man, and that would give the Bulls a fit because they had no one that could guard him. Luke Longley is too stiff to deal with Tim Duncan. A 99 Tim Duncan would torch him. So you had to have somebody like Pip try to guard Tim Duncan, and Tim Duncan would have shot over him and banked that in at will. Scotty couldn't guard Tim Duncan. There was nothing he could have done. Dennis Rodman would have been on him. Okay, then David Robinson would have gotten open. Mike would have had to deal with the Tony Parker and all these other guys who are very fast guards that's moving around. Curb couldn't guard Tony. No way. The age would have hit him. They would have been done. But nobody in the East could have beaten him. Indiana was the only shot. That rematch would have probably been the only thing that could have got him there, but no. They'd have beat them too. The only team that would have beat them was the Spurs. They would have lost. The 98 team, they couldn't have beat them. Even with Michael Jordan. And I know Jordan think as long as he's on the court, he can do it. There's too many weapons on the San Antonio Spurs. They're very efficient, and they're a high percentage shooting team. There's no way those old legs, Ron Harper, those guys would have kept up with the Spurs. Spurs would have ran them out the building. Yep, Avery and Sean Elliott. Avery was too tough. And the way Pop's system was, it would have gave him fits. Mike at his age would have been going crazy trying to guard everybody. And it would look like when Kobe was playing the Spurs. And he's just like running around, scoring all these points, and they're just spreading the ball around, tiring him out, making him work on the defensive end. And then they'll run the shot clock down and score 2 points. It's madness. There's nothing you could do. There's absolutely nothing you could do about it. Now, I don't sound silly. I sound like a basketball person who know the game. Michael Jordan is the only X factor. He don't lose. That's the thing. You're gonna have to clamp down on him. But the 99 Spurs would have beat them. They would have beat him. And if I told Mike that, it would burn him up. He's already burnt. Mike is the type, he can't let things go. You see, he can't even let the thing go. Isiah didn't shake his hand. He's still burnt up about the fact that they ended the season and retired and all this stuff, and they broke the team up. The Bulls, you got to understand, he understands now that he's an owner. But he's thinking, we could all took 1-year deals and came back. I'm like, look, Pip wanted to get paid. Pip didn't look like, I didn't play for free. I need a big deal to come back. And Reinsdorf wasn't going to do that because Reinsdorf's like, look, forget all that, man. We did the work. The work is done. We're going to eat off these championships now for the next 10 years. We could sell this merchandise, the dynasty. And look at them. The Bulls are one of the top earning teams. Top promoting, selling teams in history. The team sucks and they like fifth in earnings because they sell Bulls memorabilia in the stadium every game. People go there and they buy Jordan jerseys. They got all of them too, the 96 jerseys. Now the 96 jerseys I like. The red one, the black with the red pinstripes. I hate the Bulls, but those was tight. Those are the best jerseys I done seen them have. And then those Jordans that that he wore with that outfit, those was voted the best Jordans out of all the Jordans. Those black and those reds, the go Jordans, that go with that outfit. Well, they tried to reclaim Pippen's like he had some heart in the end. Scotty, he was never clutch. You see him miss the 2 free throws that cost him the game. Because that's what Scotty does. He cost you the games. The 94 Rockets versus the Chicago Bulls. Man, I would have loved to seen that. That's one game because everybody would love to say like how they matched up, and I think it would have been a 6-game series. I would have picked probably the Bulls to beat them. I go back and forth with it because a lot of what happened with Houston, it was their time for some reason. Like their outside shooting is what bailed them out. Their outside shooting, it came in and bailed them out. They were impeccable with their outside. It was clutch shooting. And a rookie, Sam Cassell, doing what he was doing, it would have caught the Bulls off guard. And they had no backup guard that was ready for that 3-guard attack with Kenny Smith. And then you got Sam Cassell and Big Shot Bob. The man name is Big Shot Bob because he does what? Hit big shots. The Bulls wouldn't have been prepared for it. Because how could you be prepared? Don't forget to hit the like button, folks. Right. The Indiana Pacers would have been down 3-1 had Scotty not blown it, missing 2 free throws in the clutch. And Reggie hit the 3, and Michael still almost won it, even though it was 0.7 of a second. How in the world the NBA know they were dirty for that? They put time back on the clock so that Jordan can get a shot off. It was 0.3 seconds. They put it 0.7 just so Mike can legitimately have a chance at a shot. 0.7 seconds. Okay? 0.7. That means like that's not even a second. So as soon as the ball touched Michael Jordan's hands, he's got to throw the shot up. Not only does Michael catch the ball, he pumps the ball down, comes all the way up and shoots the ball. And 0.7? No. As soon as that ball touches his hands, that clock, that's 0.7. Oh, he almost made it because he's Michael Jordan. That's what he does. He comes up big in those moments. Did you hear how he broke down, how he hit the shot over Byron Russell? What Byron Russell didn't know is that he was watching Byron Russell even when he was retired and Russell was talking crap to him. He was watching him, knowing his moves. You heard what he said? He said, man, he plays on his front foot. So if I can throw a pump fake or whatever and move here or there, he can't recover. And he hit the game shot. He already scouted him. So he already knew what to do. Yeah, they in panic mode. I mean, especially after they learn everything that they already know. That's what's funny. Is the media is so like, I didn't know anything about this flu game. It's like, when the world was you at? Well, Reggie and Michael has always had a long history. I'm glad they went back to show you the first game. Like, Reggie's always bowed down to Mike, but Mike does homework on you, like Kobe does. You see, a lot of you don't know. Put some more content on the Patreon. Did you not see what I put out on the Patreon? Are you kidding? I was like, dude, that's like I'm putting up like 2-3 things a day on the Patreon. And I mean valuable. You're learning things that you've never heard talk to you before ever. We go from a sex tape to talk about banking and the economic prison system. Where does any of that fit in together? No. Michael was at that time, the Bulls were the team that been together the longest. The only team that's been together longer than the Bulls was the Utah Jazz. Everybody else was destroyed by free agency. They kept a nucleus, which was really Michael, Scotty, and they kept that whole nucleus going with the coaching and everything else. So Utah was the only team that was like that. Everybody else had been totally remade. The Knicks were remade. The Indiana Pacers, they were remade, and it was such a corruption and a fit that they did. They went in Larry Bird's first year as a head coach because they wanted to have Larry Bird involved in this situation. They want to right. They want to have Larry Bird in there, so they let him coach the Pacers, and they take the Pacers all the way here. And then the next year, they get beat by a miracle shot. Then in Bird's last year coaching, because the grind of traveling back and forth on the road and all of the flying is bad on his back. Larry's tired, don't feel like coaching and being on the sidelines no more and all of this. So in his last year coaching, he only coached those 3 years. They go to the NBA finals. And they play against who? The Lakers. And then it's Magic versus Bird, the whole promotion. So, in case people didn't know, that was all set up by the league. They wanted the Lakers to go there so they could do the Lakers versus Magic versus Bird. And Magic, yeah, we still competing. And Larry's like, I don't know how he thinks this is competition when he's sitting way up there in the crowd and I'm down here coaching on the floor. But all right, whatever. Oh, that fight. Jordan already was a time bomb. Jordan had the referee, Hugh Evans, hooked Michael Jordan up with a chick in Indiana. You know, he would, and this blew the whole roof off the corruption. Why is a referee hanging out with Michael Jordan? Well, thank you. We should have been way over 100 likes. I don't know how. I thought we already hit 100 likes already. So anyway, Hugh Evans hooked Michael Jordan up with a blonde girl in Indiana. She ended up, Mike was going back and forth with her, and she was pregnant. Mike paid some money to silence her up, and the baby wasn't Mike. But for 9 months, he was going through it. So that led Mike to explode the way he did and just run at Reggie Miller because he was mad at the situation he had brewing in his household. A lot of people didn't know all that, and they didn't go into all the details. We know now because we've seen all the pictures and everything on the internet. We know about the baby and all that, but now you got to tie that into why he attacked Reggie Miller the way he did. Well, you got to understand something about this game. It's all mental. And very important thing that Michael said about this series and this saga that was key. He said something very key. And what was key was the fact that the last championship he felt he was his best. And he told you why. They told you why. The first one was great, but he was young, he was hungry, he had energy for days. By 98, he was exhausted. Physically, he couldn't do the things he could do back in 91. And he's more exhausted now. He's been drinking a lot, smoking stogies. So his body upkeep haven't been the same. He's an older guy. So he had to use his mind more than his physical attributes. All the things, the foundations that he was taught. Like he said, for the last shot, because he was missing so many shots and they were coming short because he was tired. And on the last shot, what did he tell you? He's like, the two fingers pointing towards the rim. He's like, that's why I had to put that extra, because he's like, I've been short on all my shots. And that shot was all net. That goes back to the fundamentals that he was taught back when he was a kid. You had to fall back on what you know. That was probably one of the most key things he said in there, that I had to use my mind more than my body in that last year to win it. More than the first championship. He had energy for days. He was hungry. I could have win 3 just off the energy alone. Like I knew I could win, like was more of a challenge of him physically getting through it. And that's what makes him special. This shows you the difference. When certain athletes, he's special. No one has to put him there. He could actually do the things. And I wasn't a Michael Jordan fan, but he was different. He was actually different. And that's why he says the 98 championship meant more to him. Now, John Stockton. I love John Stockton. John Stockton's a great point guard, one of the best to ever do it. But he is not Isiah Thomas. Ladies and gentlemen, stop this comparison. Stop trying to put John Stockton ahead of Isiah Thomas. No, because Isiah Thomas would have hidden that shot at the end. John Stockton was never clutch. John could never go out and get you that shot. John Stockton, biggest shot he did when he hit that 3 over and beat Houston to put Utah in the NBA Finals. That was the only time John Stockton has hit a big shot in his career. The only time. John was great at running the floor, running the team offense. He could pass. He wasn't an outstanding passer. He was just good at getting assists and running a team offense. I mean, he was a great point guard. True point guard. But John Stockton's not Isiah Thomas. There's a special gene. He could not play defense like Isiah. He was a good defender, but he could not play like Isiah. He can't take over a game like Isiah. That's an insult to Isiah. As great as John is, it's an insult to Isiah to say John is better than him. John knows he's not better than Isiah. And I felt bad for John when Isiah had to torch him. Isiah took that whole dream team thing out on John on that basketball court. That was brutal. He gave him like 40. Isiah hit him up for like 40 points in Detroit. Gave him the whole smear. He could not guard him. He couldn't do anything. And he didn't know what was happening. He kept getting stuck in isolation. He just made an example out of John and embarrassed the NBA for making that decision. It's like, how dare you? And then the second game they played in Utah, Carl went, and Isiah's not going to, he's not going to agree with this. Because Isiah believes Carl went to knock him down and hit him and bust his head. Carl went to lay the wood on him because he was torching John again. It was starting all over again. He was finna torch John Stockton once more. It was starting to happen all over again. Isiah was heating up and he was getting ready to torch John again, and Carl laid the wood on him. And once that happened, he ended up hitting him in the head and giving him 40 stitches. Carl didn't try to bust his head. He didn't try to do that. He tried to give him a hard foul, a tough foul to let him know, hey, you ain't just gonna come in here like you did in Detroit. So to say Carl did a malicious thing and bust his head, I won't say that. But Zeke ain't never gonna like Carl, and Carl ain't never gonna like Zeke, mainly because of that. That did it. Besides that, they had no problems. None. It was only when Carl was sticking up for John, his teammate. What he's supposed to do? He was doing. That's what he's supposed to do. He's supposed to stick up for Stockton. That's his teammate. But I just want people to know, no way. There's no way. That's why there's no credibility in what any lists that ESPN could even think about putting out. It's a lot of. I think episode 7 is probably my favorite. I don't want to forget the Steve Kerr. I do like the way they tied Steve Kerr, what he went through with his father, and how a lot of people didn't know that. I've heard the story before, but a lot of people didn't know about what happened with Steve Kerr's father. And they talked about it during a San Antonio Spurs thing. But the fact that him and Michael shared that something tragic happened to their fathers, how they tied that in, I thought that was beautiful. But my only take back of this whole saga was the fact that they didn't have his wife, Juanita, in there as if she wasn't important. They showed the kids for like 5 minutes. But I can understand Jasmine, she was young. But they didn't even show Juanita say anything. I mean, she could have just been on there for 2 minutes and was like, I was just there and did this, and that was what I did, as a wife at the time. This was what I did and what I saw. I mean, they act like she wasn't even a part of it. They could have. The thing is, she could have declined too. She could have declined to be a part of it. She's got 100 some odd million, so she's good. So she can decline to be a part of anything. Craig wasn't. That's another one. I was gonna get to that. Craig, how you not gonna have Craig Hodges in there? That was one of the biggest things ever. Craig Hodges being blacklisted. How you not gonna have that on there? Michael Jordan getting Craig Hodges basically kicked off the team. And the other thing, how you not gonna show game 5 and 6 of the Indiana series? I'm like, how you got 2 episodes and you mean to tell me you couldn't squeeze in game 5 and 6? And they just omitted the fight that happened in game 4 that led to the suspension of Jalen Rose. How you gonna skip that? I mean, I don't understand what he was doing. I mean, Michael wasn't even at the White House. Mike didn't even go when they won the championship the first time, and he blew that off just so he can go play golf. Yeah, well, you look at all the teams, the Bulls, if you look on paper, the Bulls really didn't have a better team than the Utah Jazz. They had Dennis Rodman, they had Scottie Pippen, they had Kerr, they had the pieces to win, but they had guys who understood these pressure situations. But Utah was the better balanced team. They had guys that could bang. You had Antoine Carr, you had Malone, MVP, Hornacek, Stockton. I mean, you got the best point guard. Jordan is the best two guard. Rodman was the X factor, but him and Karl Malone gonna bang each other around. So that freed up Scotty to do stuff, and Scotty really didn't do too much in the series. Exactly. Then Gus. The story with Gus taking like over the father's side, that was very emotional. When he said Mike would call him at like 2 in the morning. Um, Michael Jordan would just call him at 2 o'clock in the morning and start saying, hey, crying. And he would go over there and sit with Michael when his father passed. These are the stories these are the things that, you get a feel of how the real Michael Jordan was, and you got to see that and how it played out in real life in real time. And those are the moments that's going to hit you in the heart. You go, man, now I get it. He really was going through it. He really he needed that guy, Gus, to be his father figure. And it's like his dad was working through Gus. He needed that protector. Like he said, he needed that old voice to tell him, like, hey, when he needs somebody to talk to. And that's why he was able to be so relaxed. And, he had Gus to help get him through it. Oh yeah, Jordan was gonna pay his medical bills, everything for Gus. Even when Gus was sick, Mike was the one that noticed him, the first one to notice he was sick. It was like Gus ain't right. Like we got to make sure, get him to a hospital. Gus is not Gus right now. Mike had a human side, but he had to sacrifice it in order to be who he is. Like earlier in the video today, I told you about his father, and always trying to get his father's attention. Mostly these things start from childhood. And like he said, always trying to fight for his father's attention because his dad and Larry was close. That was like his father's twin, Larry, his brother Larry. And he's always competing to try to get some affection from his father. And his dad was like, I probably was too hard on him. Because Michael, he didn't know anything. It's like Larry and Pops was like twins. Larry, give me a beer, Larry. Larry grab him a beer. Larry go get anything. Him and Larry fixing on the car. They fixing lawnmowers together. Yeah, give me that wrench over there. And then Mike could come out there. Mike, hand me a 916. Man, and he just grab him a screwdriver or something. Boy, this boy is useless. Man, just go on back in the house with your mother. And that would get Mike mad. He'll be so mad because he'll get sent away. And it would burn him up. No, James Jordan actually said that right out of his own mouth. Matter of fact, I think it was actually in The Last Dance. They might have actually used that in The Last Dance in the first couple of episodes. James Jordan spoke very freely. He didn't hold any words back. Like it was him when he was like, Michael, he's like, God made an athlete out of him because if he would starve if he had to work. He's like, thank God for making an athlete out of Michael. Cause that boy probably starved if he had to work. All right. So we're getting ready to shut this down. But before we do, don't forget to subscribe, all of you, and hit the notification bell and select all to make sure you get your notifications. And before we get out of here, my Cash App is Carcino. If you love it and you can show some love to the Cash App. Carcino, baby. You know what time it is. And definitely check out that Patreon. Now, before we leave, the Carcino for Life is the name of the Patreon, by the way. Now, before we leave, I want to know, what is your favorite episode or what is your best moment from the Last Dance series? It could be 1 through 10. What was your favorite episode and what was your best scene? Thanks, Big Unk. He said none of them. Well, at least he's honest. The one with the Pistons. The Kobe Bryant moment. Okay. The baseball bat scene. Yeah. MJ with the bat. Yeah, it's a lot of good scenes. The early years. Yeah. Jordan crying on the floor. Oh, yeah. Picking on Scott Burrell. Scott would never stick up for himself. He would just take it. Scott was just a nice guy. I told you that too. I told y'all mostly everything in this documentary. I did a whole video on Jordan and Scott Burrell. Because he would mercilessly pick on that man. Watching Jordan drink 15K bottle tequila all 10 episodes. He even know what Mike drinking. Oh, 15K vodka. He's like, oh, you talking about in this last episode? We might see the kill tonight. Rodman going to the WCW. Yeah, that actual pay-per-view is like classic. They got it on YouTube, I think, when Karl Malone was fighting Rodman and stuff. And then when he was in there, I'm like, man, Karl Malone looked like a wrestler. They was like, man, he's in peak condition. And probably people like, man, I thought Karl Malone was fat. It's like, I don't like that Karl Malone wasn't fat. He's like, oh, I'm like, his jersey is just big. I'm like, Carl was a strong, big country dude carrying logs on his. Carl's very strong, but he's not big. That's just that shirt. Yeah, I mean, dude had like what 4% body fat, if that. Carl was just all muscle and mass. And walks around with no security. I swear to God, Karl Malone has no security. Zero. And how dare somebody walk up on Karl Malone, even today? So, good night. We will reconvene tomorrow. LeBron, you better turn your alerts off.